I'm going to read a number of tweets to you, and I want you to recognize the recurring pattern. 7 fires at black churches at an HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi on Election Day. This may seem shocking to some, but this ugly side of America has always been here. No hashtag media coverage of the series of coordinated white supremacist domestic terrorist fire attacks against 7 black churches and 1 HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi. This is embedded, unchallenged white supremacist racism. Make room to report terrorist attacks. This happened today. Racism and white supremacist terrorism lives. More white supremacist terrorism in Mississippi. Multiple historic black churches have been burned. White supremacist terrorists burned churches in Jackson, Mississippi today, seemingly in an attempt to intimidate black voters on Election Day. White supremacy is still alive and well in the United States, and it's only getting more powerful as half of our leaders tactically endorse it. And in all those tweets I just read, you got the recurring pattern of white supremacy, white terrorism, all this racism in America. This person or this group of people obviously targeted black churches to intimidate black men and black women, the most disrespected group in American history, so that they won't go to the polls and vote. There's just one problem and one problem only, and I wonder if you could guess what it is.
That's right. A short time ago, McLaurin was booked in, the 23-year-old captured near the Hinds-Copiah County line by Hinds County deputies. And the police chief tells us that initially he will face malicious mischief charges from JPD. Now, FBI agents will be sitting in on the interrogation with JPD investigators, and McLaurin could face even more serious charges, including possible federal hate crime charges. Flames and smoke billowing from Epiphany Lutheran Church. According to the Jackson Fire Department, an arsonist targeted this church and another house of worship, along with 5 other structures overnight Tuesday. All the blazes within a mile and a half of each other near the Jackson State University campus.
I can't say I have seen things like this before, but this is a major occurrence. This is not something that we normally go to.
I got a call this morning about 1:45 saying that there was a fire going here at the church.
Greater Bethlehem Temple Church Communications Director Irvin Rick says several classrooms at the church's children's Sunday school department had extensive damage from a fire that broke out around 2 o'clock in the morning.
It appears as just a single individual that came and deliberately tried to start a fire and actually broke into the church and got in and started the fire that way.
Houses, one thing. Now you're dealing with churches. It's amazing that we would feel that we can just do this.
Authorities say the arsonist also set fire to a house on Pascagoula Street that destroyed that structure, and they believe the fire starter torched a privacy covering at a fence at the Jackson State University baseball field. The burning churches raised questions about whether the arsonist could be politically motivated. Neither church targeted is a polling precinct. The flames erupting hours before polls open in the crucial midterm election that will determine the balance of political power in Congress.
This going on and the rhetoric that's going on in the country now, you just have to be careful and keep an eye out of what's going on.
And now that McLaurin is in custody, JPD police chief tells us that they won't have to worry about bringing security to keep churches safe now that the suspect is in custody. Church members and their leaders can rest easy.
This is why I tell y'all, information is key. It is okay if you hear about something and you don't have all the details. You can wait. You don't have to spout a hot take from somebody else. You don't have to instigate something. You don't have to perpetuate some narrative in order to make something stick. You don't have to be a politician trying to get people scared and realizing that somebody's out there doing an obvious bad and trying to make it a thing of they're trying to scare you all not to vote. No, this is just a sick human being who deserves to be arrested. That is it. There's nothing more to this. The more y'all want to jump and say, oh, this should be talked about. How come no one's talking about this? Which they should. The problem is you can't just be adding your little sprinkles on it saying, oh, this white supremacist racism attack is obviously another form of history in America, when it's somebody who's a little bit lighter than I am. You can't be serious in these moments where you want to be taken serious. You sound like an absolute idiot. I'm sorry that your narrative of the evil white guy didn't stick this time. Maybe you'll get it in another situation. But in this one, you have to keep it consistent. None of these individuals wanted to come back and say, well, this is the obvious person who did this, and I don't really know how he can tie to white supremacy. Maybe he's been embedded in all these Republican groups and they poisoned him with their white rhetoric and it obviously affected his feeble mind. How many times do I have to keep explaining this to y'all? You can't just be jumping to Twitter with somebody else's hot take and hoping that nobody checks you on it. I just want all of you to know that tweeted things like this, you are wrong, you are dumb, you lack critical thinking, you lack the ability to do research, because if you did, or if you just waited literally a couple of hours, you would have found out who did this and you would have realized your entire concept of just blaming random white people and blaming the historical impact of white supremacists makes no sense because it's a black dude. Do I know why he decided to burn down a couple of churches? No. Do I care? No. Why? Because he did it and he belongs in jail with Big Tyrone. At the end of the day, this is just a fundamental situation with the common man and woman and their ability and lack thereof to do common research. There are people who spend years being journalists who do things like this, and when they get caught, they get mad that they have to print a retraction. Don't be like these people. Be like me. Come to the land of common sense where we wait for information, we wait for more details, we wait to talk trash and make fun of the people who decided to spew hot takes because that's more enjoyable and that's more fun.
So I don't mean to alarm anybody or try to fearmonger, but hear me out. My fellow POC in America, we need to hope and pray to whatever God, arbitrary figure in the sky you believe in, whatever, that Kyle Rittenhouse goes to jail. Think about it. When you listen to a lot of the shit that the right says on forums, message boards, behind closed doors, it is very clear that they have murder fantasies and that they dream of the day in which a left-wing person will give them the means or the excuse to kill them. We've seen the video that circled around of the guy asking Charlie Kirk, when do we get to kill people? When do we get to use the guns? Kyle Rittenhouse is going to inspire a shit ton of conservatives and just general white supremacists to open fire on peaceful protesters and just kill people of color because of white genocide. I'm legit scared, y'all. I'm legit scared.
And if you don't want to do that, and if you want to continue spewing your rhetoric and hot takes, I would sincerely hope that the minute you get called out for being wrong about your hot take, you get back on the same platform you spewed it on and said, I apologize, I am wrong. And if you don't do that, welcome to being a random blue check mark on Twitter these days. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.